Former President Donald Trump hosted his first major 2024 presidential campaign rally over the weekend.
Yeah, the rally happens to coincide, more than happens, I think, with a Manhattan grand jury weighing whether or not it will formally indict the former president in connection to its hush money probe. The former president, meanwhile, slammed this investigation along with his potential GOP challengers at the rally in the not-so-subtle Waco, Texas.
The District Attorney of New York, under the auspices and direction of the Department of Injustice in Washington, D.C., was investigating me for something that is not a crime, not a misdemeanor, not an affair.
Kevin Sheridan joins us now. Kevin is a founding partner of Protean Public Affairs and a former senior advisor to Mitt Romney-Paul Ryan, the Mitt Romney-Paul Ryan campaign, in 2012. Kevin is also a former spokesperson for the Republican National Committee. Kevin, good to be talking with you. I think the former president, that would be Trump, is not a fan of your former bosses, to put it mildly. I would imagine, and I'm interested in your thoughts here, that the president's sort of anti-federal investigation, anti-government rhetoric at the campaign has the potential to alienate middle-of-the-road Republicans, people outside of his base. What's your sense of that, though?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he's got 25–30% of the party that's probably pretty locked in for him. That's been constant since 2015, honestly. But that leaves 70% of the party up for grabs. So he can certainly do a rally in Waco, Texas, rural Texas, red state, and get a big crowd. And then he can rant about death and destruction and, hit all of his opponents and do his greatest hits. The question is, I don't know that 70% of the party is paying attention to him at this point. I think it's, he's speaking very much to his base, and that's the way he always plays it. But there's a lot of voters out there who are not into this.
Another theme, of course, that has been ongoing and constant in former President Trump's rhetoric is just the attacks on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Is DeSantis, who hasn't even declared that he's running in 2024, but seems like he will, is he the biggest threat to Trump in the 2024 race? What's the temperature on that?
Yeah, without question. DeSantis, it should be a two-person race eventually. It's just a matter of time for all the other 1%, 2% candidates to realize that they need to get out. Hopefully they do it in time. That is, if DeSantis, comes out swinging and his poll numbers shore up, it should be a two-person race. But yeah, he's attacking DeSantis as a fixture of the Republican establishment. The problem is Ron DeSantis is not a fixture of the Republican establishment. He was a member of the Freedom Caucus in the House. He's a self-made guy. He went to Harvard and Yale on his own, had no political, or money behind him, political connections or money behind him. He's done this all himself. And really, it's not a personality-driven candidacy. It's the results he's getting in Florida. So he's going to have a really strong argument to make. He's got to go out and make it. He's doing it. He did his book tour, and he's got to get through this legislative session. But he's going to have a really strong case to make against Trump. Yeah,
so Kevin, the question then becomes, can he beat Trump if he runs in head-to-head primary competitions? Or, as I recall from covering this back in 2015, will there need to be like a Kasich and Cruz and Pence alliance in the last minute to somehow block out the Trump vote? When you have a big field, there's the potential for things to get split very finely. Yeah. And Trump, with his 25%, that could be enough, maybe.
Yeah, it could be. Let's just hope we've all learned something since 2015 and 16, when we thought that all these machinations of trying to partner up and block him in certain states, and it just didn't happen. It doesn't work that way. What has to happen is that the main candidates have to understand that they have to get behind one of these alternative candidates, Trump, and that's what happened for the Democrats in 2020 with Joe Biden, and that was the most stunning, remarkable thing, that they all just got out at the same time. Yeah. Our folks did not do that. Ted Cruz stayed in, John Kasich stayed in, Marco Rubio tried to stay in. So that's what happened in 2016, and Trump just cruised.
That is such a good point. Yeah, I didn't thought about it that way, but you're right.
There was a really bold support towards, later in the primary process. Anyway, Kevin Sheridan, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, come back soon.
Great to see you.